Welcome to this PayTrace webinar. My name is Sam Johnson. I'll be your host today. And if you are joining us live, thank you for joining this webinar live. If you are new to PayTrace webinars, special welcome to you guys, especially to the group from Scaling New Heights that we just met recently. My colleague Mary and I were out there and had some really great conversations with some people in the financial space. So if you're able to join us from that, welcome. Um, just to go over some housekeeping today, PayTrace webinars are about 30 minutes long, so we'll get you in and out of here pretty quickly. But really, our goal is to get you some really good information about PayTrace, what we're doing in the industry, and some other ways that we can help partner together and provide some value. You will notice if you are live, you are muted. It's not because we want to discourage any dialogue, but we do want to reduce any sort of background distractions. So if you have questions, comments, or emotional outbursts throughout this presentation, we welcome that. We encourage that. If you wiggle your mouse around on your Zoom panel, you should see a Q&A button. Go ahead and open that up. Send those questions in to me, and we'll carve out a few minutes at the end of today's presentation to tackle some of those. So without further ado, today's webinar is titled Beyond Standard Invoicing Using QuickBooks Online Payment Automation Workflows. I think we may be setting the record for the longest webinar title in PayTrace history, but that's only because we have so much good content for you here today. So as we look into our agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about digitizing invoicing within B2B payments. So how can we um, essentially automate accounts receivable through electronic invoicing? And then specifically, we're going to be looking at that through the lens of QuickBooks Online. So we're going to get into a little bit of a product demo, showcase some of our really cool tools that we have out there. And then lastly, I do want to shell out some time to discuss some of the different partner programs that we have, whether you are a bookkeeper or an accountant or CPA, or if you're an ISO and in the payment space, we've got a lot of different types of partner programs where you can have access to some of these features and be able to sell that, use it yourself. So we can get into some of the details on that at the very end. All right, so let's talk a little bit about kind of what the current status is with B2B payments, specifically in the accounts receivable space. Um, if you've been on some of my presentations before, you might recognize this slide. Um, the challenges haven't changed much in the last year. People are still very frustrated with slow traditional payment cycles. When I think about B2B and B2C, right, business to business and business to consumer, there's some very vast differences with how we collect payments. When I make a business to consumer transaction, it's expected I pay that business immediately. Um, it's funny because they are adopting some different B2B kind of strategies with things like buy now, pay later. If you've seen like the Klarna ads or whatever that might look like for a merchant where you can, um, right, get that and pay it over time. Funny, kind of like B2B. But typically in a business to business transaction, it's a lot of payment on some sort of terms. So it might be a net 30, net 60 day term where on purchase or on delivery, the customer has X amount of days to pay those transactions. And while those terms are set, naturally, we want to get money in the bank sooner. Sure, they have maybe 30 days to get that paid, but if we could get that cash on day seven, day five, day one, right, that's going to be much better for us as the merchant, right, as the supplier, because when we have that cash on hand, we can immediately reinvest that into the business, right? So oftentimes what we're finding is that DSO, day sales outstanding, can take, much longer than what we expect it to. So that's one of the things that we're looking to tackle is how can we expedite and automate that payment process, make it faster. Disconnected buying experience. I'd ask for show of hands, but I can't see anybody. How many of you pay by paper check typically? I will tell you, I use a paper check for one of my bills because they charge me a lot of money if I pay with other methods. But With that said, disconnected buying experience, um, consumers want a really easy way to pay their bills, right? They don't want to have to cut a paper check. They don't want to have to dig through a paper stack or look for a piece of mail that they've received and then have to pay against that and reconcile their accounts, right? They want everything to be as seamless and frictionless as possible. So, one of the big challenges is how can suppliers, merchants, deliver better modern platforms for their customers to pay, right? Make that much simpler. When they do that, it's really going to reinforce the relationship and the experience that our buyers have. And then lastly, e-commerce just continues to grow within business to business. So being able to implement some sort of payment solution embedded within our e-commerce platforms, our ERPs, or our accounting platforms, like we'll talk about today, is only going to make that so much simpler, right? It's going to make everybody more efficient. It's going to reduce human error, and right, it's just going to save a lot of time. So I had mentioned earlier how many people pay by paper check. You know, it seems so outdated and archaic with some of the modern solutions like card, ACH. But believe it or not, paper check is still, by and large, the most prominent form of payment processing today. And nobody likes that. I mean, the banks might like that, but the actual people transacting, right? It's a hassle. So when we look at B2B payments, there's a lot of opportunity out there, whether it's if you are a business yourself to modernize how you collect payments, or if you're a processor or right, a bookkeeping firm, right? There's a lot of different ways that we can tackle this large blue piece of this pie and try to put some more optimal payment solutions in place. So how can we do that? Well, one of the things that we do, as PayTrace specializes in, is AR automation. I talked about kind of the paper process of accounts receivables a moment ago, but unless you're really living in it, sometimes it's hard to understand how inefficient that is because it kind of just happens more or less. But for a bill to get paid, there's a lot of steps that take place. So I've got this really cool infographic. Feel free if you want to screenshot that. I really like this to really highlight a lot of the inefficiencies with accounts receivable in kind of the traditional form. But from the time that a customer makes a purchase, right, that should be the time that we celebrate. But really, on the accounting side, that's kind of just the beginning, right? Now we've got to generate and create an invoice. Um, we've got to stuff envelopes. We got to get that to USPS or FedEx or whoever our mail carrier is. And that goes out into the ether, and we don't know what's happening unless we're paying for, signed reception of that, which we aren't. For it's an invoice. Um, and then hopefully, when the customer receives that, it can get to the right person really quickly. Now, in today's world, a lot of people work remote. There's not necessarily a need for in office for a lot of businesses, so it might take extra long for that to get rerouted to the right person. Then they're not going to pay that immediately. They're going to see that and be like, "Ah, a bill. I don't want to pay this." Eventually, they're going to have to print out, cut a check, stuff an envelope, get that back to the merchant. At the very fastest, that might take a week at the earliest. Typically, I'd put that at about a month. Most recent data that we've seen actually is trending towards more like 2 months or over 60 days for those outstanding receivables, which isn't great, right? It's clunky, it's archaic. So what we can do is with PayTrace, we've got a lot of really great digital invoicing and accounts receivable tools where essentially, and this is a little nebulous. We're going to dive into this image here in a minute, right? Customer makes purchase. We do some really cool stuff with PayTrace, and then merchant gets paid, right? 80% of digital payments are received within a week. So again, cash in the bank quicker, more efficient, less error, happier customers. So, um, we've been able to implement our AR solutions in a lot of different ways, right? We have a standalone solution. We integrate into a few ERP systems, but one of our biggest integrations is with essentially the biggest accounting platform in the world, QuickBooks Online. So, we're going to take, let's see, how are we doing? Maybe 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, and dive into a quick demo to show you what that looks like. So let's go ahead and pull over into our dashboard here. What you're seeing here is my Trace AR account. Trace AR is PayTrace's platform that you can log in on the internet, and this is my dashboard. I have a lot of tools that I can do standalone from here. But the reason why I've got this pulled up is because I want to showcase what the integration process looks like. To actually connect PayTrace into QuickBooks, it's as simple as going into this integration tab, clicking on this QuickBooks button, and entering in your QuickBooks Online username and password and hitting connect. Usually takes about 30 seconds for those to sync up. But it's extremely easy, right? It's not this big clunky implementation process. That's always a hesitation with people adopting new technologies is, well, why would I move away from Intuit payments and move to something else when it's so easy? Honestly, this is just as easy. So we're connected. I'm going to toggle over to my actual QuickBooks Online account because everything that I need to do, I can do natively within QuickBooks. This isn't some sort of middleware. This isn't some sort of QuickBooks lookalike. This is actual QuickBooks Online. And what's great is that if I am a QuickBooks user today and I'm used to processing payments and invoices through Intuit, uh, when you integrate PayTrace to essentially replace Intuit payments, nothing's changing. You're still able to process all of your payments the exact same way that you would with Intuit, but PayTrace is the engine behind the scenes. And there's a lot of benefits for that I'm going to get into in here in a sec. But just to show you that I'm not just making all this up, we're going to run an invoice. So I've got my customer list here. What's great about Trace AR is that we support what's called a two-way sync between QuickBooks and PayTrace, meaning every customer that you have stored within QuickBooks is going to be synced into PayTrace's customer database. Similarly, anything synced and stored within PayTrace is brought over into QuickBooks. So, chicken or the egg, whichever one you had first, they're still going to share all the same information back and forth, which is really nice. So, I'm going to grab myself as a customer, which is dangerous. You're going to see I've got a lot of outstanding payments to myself. But we're going to go ahead and send out an invoice. So we're going to do new invoice. And I'm going to drop in a few different, we'll just do one item, keep it simple. I'm going to do a club set for $5,000. Um, Everything else, right? I can put in notes, I can put in details, all that good stuff. Really, the only difference that you will see between Intuit and PayTrace is that when we send this invoice, we're just going to hit save and close rather than review and send. If we hit review and send, it's going to create a duplication between both payment providers. We don't want that. We just want to do the PayTrace side. So I can see that that's been created within QuickBooks. I've got invoice number 1149 for $5,000, and I've got a net term of 30 days on it. Now, what's great is I can hop back over into Trace AR, and just to show you that it is actually syncing up, it's already here. I didn't even have to refresh my page, which is pretty cool. So I've got 1149. I've got the little QuickBooks icon that lets me know that this was actually generated and initiated within QuickBooks. So if I wanted to, I can open this up as the customer, and I can see my invoice. This hasn't actually synced up yet, but what's nice about this is that once this invoice actually gets delivered to the customer, um, because we're using QuickBooks, it's actually going to scrap this template, which is PayTrace's own, and it's going to provide the QuickBooks template that your customers are already familiar with. So from their perspective, right, all their documentation is going to look and feel the same. Now, right? Why why PayTrace if Intuit does this already? Well, a couple cool things that we provide on here as well is we have invoice tracking. So for any of our customers that might struggle with accounts receivable and getting those receivables in, what's cool is that this down to the minute will tell us everything that's taken place on that invoice, every interaction. So I can see that this was created within QuickBooks at 11:14 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I can see that Sam Johnson actually clicked the link on the dashboard. If this was via email, I can actually see when the merchant reads the email and when they click within the email, which is nice because that's going to create a lot more visibility for us. It's also going to create a layer of accountability. So you've got a lot of really good insights into what's taking place. You also may have noticed on my payment page, I've got a couple different ways that we can pay this off. PayTrace supports both card and ACH payments, and we have some different pricing methodologies. So you can just have one standard price that goes out to the customer, which is pretty common. But now a lot of merchants are trying to recover a lot of the costs of processing. So you can implement things like compliance surcharging. As you can see on here, I have what's called dual pricing set up, where if customer pays by card, it's X amount. If they pay via, cash or ACH, it's this amount, which is really great because, right, again, you can recover some of the costs because a lot of the times card can be a little bit more expensive. So on here, I've got different ways I can pay this off. I'll pay by ACH because I don't want to pay the extra fees. If that customer has any additional outstanding invoices, it's also going to pull those up. So I'll pay this other one out for $1,000 while I'm here. And it's very simple. So that's been paid. That's going to post back into QuickBooks in just a few minutes. Actually, probably not even, probably about 20 seconds. And we can close that out and reconcile our books. So you've got some really great tools there. The other thing that we support is what's called our client portal. And this is a feature. Oftentimes, if you're using like utility company and you owe money, right? You've got a bill. It's actually the first of the month. I probably need to pay my bills from June. Um, you can go to their website. You can click on a link and you can have your own portal and see all of your, upcoming payments, all of your payment history, things like that. That's what this is. So if I wanted to give my customers a link or post this onto my website, I can do that. Copy paste that. It's going to ask me to log in with an email or a phone number. So I will put in my email. It should send me a one-time code. So let me see if I can dig that up here really quick. 6504, 6504. Now get me access to my portal. I don't need a password or anything, which is kind of nice. So this will show if I have any outstanding invoices, I can pay those directly through here. Um, it'll give me past history. So if I needed to track down a receipt or the actual itemized invoice, I can add different payment methods within my online wallet with this merchant. A lot of really good tools that are at my disposal. So again, when we talk about that disconnected buyer experience, this is adding another layer of modernization um, and right seamlessness so that they can go in and make their payments. All right. So let me just actually do a refresh on QuickBooks, make sure that that got paid off correctly. And there we go. Payment received. So it's got that right on that invoice 1149, and it also captured the additional $1,000 which was paid down. I believe it was on this one below. So again, really great syncing capabilities. There we go. So when we talk about the value of automated accounts receivables, right? We've kind of talked about these quite a bit, but getting paid faster is really important, right? freeing up AR personnel time. When you're able to do this all automatically within QuickBooks, right? And you're not having to leave your one system, not even the fact that you need to um, right, go back and forth between paper processing, but even the lack of toggling between different accounts, right? You have QuickBooks, then you have some other third-party provider where you need to leave and then punch that information back into. Because this all is taking place within QuickBooks, it's going to make things a lot more consistent. It's going to make things a lot more um, correct, right? Real-time visibility. So like we saw, real-time syncing, everything's moving out really quickly. Increased end user security. Um, with PayTrace, security is always at the forefront of what we do. We want to make sure that everything is keeping our clients in PCI compliance, NACHA compliance, making sure that all of that sensitive card data and payment information is secure. Because we do want to be able to host that, right? We want to be able to reference that if we need to pay against somebody's card on file, but we also don't want to actually have that full data at our disposal. So everything that PayTrace does is encrypted. It's all hosted by us, so it's on our servers, and it's really limiting that scope of the merchant. And then one thing I hadn't mentioned yet, and we'll get to this in the next slide, is reduce transaction fees. So I mentioned earlier, we have the ability to help recover some costs of processing through programs like surcharging, cash discount, dual pricing. But there's another layer called interchange optimization that we can help out with. Um, but before I get to that, I do also want to mention we do have some of the best support really in this industry. So if you have those questions, comments, or emotional outbursts like you have today, um, if you don't want to reach out to me directly, you can get a hold of our support team, which is phenomenal, right? On both the merchant and the partner side. Um, Extremely accessible, extremely knowledgeable, and really able to provide that great customer support experience. So let's really quick chat about costs, right? Nobody likes talking about costs. Payments cost money, unfortunately, but we've got some really great tools to help mitigate some of those costs. If you are familiar with credit card processing, this chart may look somewhat familiar if you pay attention to Visa and MasterCard interchange rates. What these are is essentially the hard cost that goes into credit card acceptance, right? So these are determined by the card brands. So when a business accepts a credit card, at the lowest end, this is what they'll pay along with whatever sort of margins that the processor also has. But what's nice about this is that with these business to business types of credit cards that are being processed, if you have the ability to apply additional data, things like line item detail and some enhanced data that the card brands want, you can actually qualify for a lower rate. So as an example, if a business is accepting a lot of Visa purchasing cards today and they're not doing any extra data entry to it, they're probably paying, 2.7% to about 3% on those transactions. With PayTrace and our QuickBooks Online solution, we're able to help pass along a lot of that enriched, right, line item detail to the card brands, which can get that hard cost down to as low as 1.75%. Right? For my accountant folks that are on here, right, that's about 100, if in some cases over 100 basis points, which is extremely significant to a merchant's bottom line, right? We're adding essentially a percent back to your profitability. So this is a really great value on top of everything that we just looked at that PayTrace does, is we can help drive down those costs pretty significantly. So why this matters, right? Number one, we just talked about it, interchange optimization. Everybody likes saving money. Everybody likes increasing profitability. It's a big deal to our end users. Number two is we offer both consolidated card and ACH options. That can be difficult with a payments provider, is finding somebody that does both all in one. There's a lot that will support, they might do the card processing, but then you have to go to a third party for ACH. Right. With PayTrace, all that's in one spot, all the reporting's in one spot. and all the batching, right? You get separate batches, but it's all occurring in the same platform, which is really convenient. Pricing flexibility. What's great about this is um, because we're able to drive down interchange, um, you can get some better pricing with Intuit payments specifically. They typically operate on what's called flat rate pricing. So you pay, 3% on every transaction or 3.5 or whatever that might look like today, right? But while that can be convenient, it's not always the optimal way. So what we do is we operate primarily on what's called interchange plus pricing, which is all those hard rates that we looked at plus whatever, our margins are. So when you get that, you get access to typically better processing rates. Real-time tracking, custom fees, client portal, all those bells and whistles that we looked at within PayTrace that, Intuit and other providers can't do as well. And then lastly, again, you get the five-star support with us. Um, so I did want to take one last moment here to talk about some of our partner programs. If you're not like an end merchant, but you might be an ISO, you might be an accounting firm, or even, somebody else tangentially, and you're interested in becoming a PayTrace partner, we've got a lot of different programs that could fit your needs. So we have things like channel partners, where you can essentially work within a channel if you work within QuickBooks constantly, or even some of the other ERPs or other softwares that are out there, and you're really an expert in that, and you have customers using, your solution, your consultancy, whatever that might look like. Um, we can partner up in that fashion, so you can also be a payments provider. We also have referral partnerships. So if you are some sort of firm, right, and you have some clients that are looking to optimize or upgrade their payments platforms, you can always refer business to us, and we've got programs in place for that. And then, of course, gateway resellers for our folks that are more in the payment space. If you're an ISO or a processor, or even a financial institution, you can resell our solutions. Um, all this can be co-branded. We've got a lot of really good materials, sales materials, and resources for you to take advantage of. And then, of course, most importantly, is we do have revenue share, which is nice so that when your customers get paid, you also get paid. So it's essentially, residuals in perpetuity. If your customers do well and they use PayTrace, you will also do well because of that. So if you are interested in any of those, please let us know. We'd love to have that conversation. And there's a lot of different solutions out there. With PayTrace, we are kind of an all-in-one tech stack. So we provide the payment gateway, the merchant services, as well as the AR tools. So rather than putting you with, a bunch of different third-party platforms, providers, the nice thing about working with PayTrace is that we're all in one. We are the payment experts so that you don't need to be, and we can take that for you. So with that said, I think we're coming right up on time. I'm happy to open this up for questions and discussion. I see that we have one here from Ben. I'll tackle that here in a moment. If you do have any follow-up, you can reach out to our team at sales@paytrace.com. Whether have an opportunity, you want to learn more, you want to become a partner, that's the best place to start. So it looks like our question here from Ben, please show a transaction from beginning to end. Um, I believe that we did that on the demo from the initiation of the invoice to the actual payment process and the posting within QuickBooks. So hopefully, Ben, that covered it. If you want to see a little bit more functionality into it beyond this webinar, let us know. We're happy to have that conversation. All right. Well, team, looks like this was a pretty smooth one, and we're going to get you out here right at the 30-minute mark. So thank you all so much for attending this live webinar. Also, for those of you that are watching the recording live on our YouTube channel, if you do want to follow up, we're going to have information in the description. Or, of course, you can reach out to sales@paytrace.com. Thank you so much.